man sips orange juice, staring at the woman on the couch. Suddenly, the front door is kicked wide open.
Hands, motherfucker!
He's slammed onto the table, his hands cuffed behind his back. Police find large amounts of cash in his house, along with several weapons. But the man shows no panic at all. As he waits for his father to bail him out, his father brings bad news. He just got Jimmy's brother out and can't do the same for him right now. The prosecutor suggests Jimmy plead guilty, promising to push for the minimum sentence of 5 years. With good behavior, it could be reduced to 2, and his father hopes this will make him stop. So Jimmy pleads guilty in court without offering any defense. But the final sentence comes as a shock.
For the minimum guideline term of 120 months.
That's when Jimmy realizes both he and his father were deceived by the prosecutor.
You lied to me, Beaumont! You fucking lied to me!
7 months pass quickly. One day, a guard suddenly escorts Jimmy to the prison infirmary. The same prosecutor who tricked him is waiting there. A female investigator notes that in just 7 months, Jimmy has already adapted to prison life. He even gets along well with the gangs and has started selling magazines inside. She also notices his unique ability. With just a few words, he can get people talking nonstop, spilling everything they know. Jimmy doesn't understand what she's getting at, so she reveals the real purpose of the visit. They want to use his talent and transfer him to another prison. His task is to befriend a serial killer. They suspect the man murdered 14 women, but only one body has ever been found. To convict him, they need to locate at least one more body. They want Jimmy to get close to him and find out where the bodies are hidden. But that prison houses the criminally insane, and Jimmy immediately refuses the offer. The investigator quickly makes it more tempting. If he completes the mission, his sentence will be significantly reduced. Jimmy looks at the prosecutor who betrayed him before, unsure if this is another trap. In the end, he still refuses. As the investigator leaves, she quietly leaves the killer's file behind. That night, Jimmy can't stop thinking about it and eventually gives in, opening the file. The next day, he tells his father everything. His father urges him not to even consider it. That place is full of lunatics. If Jimmy fails the mission or gets into trouble with them, he could be locked up there forever. Jimmy listens to his father and goes back to his routine, running his little business inside prison, hoping good behavior will earn him a reduced sentence. But he keeps thinking about that file until his mother comes to visit. She tells him his father is seriously ill and may not have a year left to live. Jimmy panics. He tracks down the investigator and asks to make a deal, but she refuses. Jimmy is just one of many candidates. If he wants the opportunity, he has to prove he's the best. Jimmy feels like he's being played again, but to seize the chance, he studies the file carefully. The case happened years ago. A woman's body was found in a cornfield. A female body was found in a cornfield, her eyes wide open, her face covered in dirt. The scene showed that she had been assaulted before her death. A nearby mechanic reported seeing a man leaving the area the night before. He drove off in a truck and even mentioned the vehicle's brand. But after a full year, the case made little progress. Detective Miller, who was in charge of the case, found a lead in a recent police report. 2 14-year-old girls had been harassed by a man in a truck. The girls said the truck was gray, and one of them remembered the license plate. Miller ran the plate and discovered the vehicle was registered in another city. Over the past year, the same truck had been reported 3 times. In 3 different cities for harassing girls on the street. Miller then began tracking the owner, Larry. The day before the victim was killed, Larry had indeed been in the area. Miller immediately contacted the police in Larry's city. They said Larry was just a strange guy. He had been bullied and beaten since childhood, and they didn't believe he was capable of murder. Although he had once confessed to a killing, the real killer was caught shortly after. They believed Larry only confessed to feel important. But Miller requested a meeting with Larry anyway. The man in front of him seemed slow and unfocused, with a strange beard and disorganized speech. Miller pulled out the case file and asked if he had been to those places and whether he had approached the 2 girls. Larry admitted he had asked them for directions, but said they told him to go to hell. He claimed he just joked around afterward and never meant to hurt them. An officer nearby joked that maybe Larry hurt them in his dreams. Larry responded that he had dreamed about killing 2 women, but he said it was only a dream. Then his eyes went blank, and he froze in place.
Larry.
What? It's not like that. No, I don't dream of killing women. I just have a lot of dreams where I'm killing them.
Moments later, he denied everything again. Miller showed him a photo of the victim and asked if he had ever seen her. Suddenly, Larry became agitated, stood up, and said he wanted to go home. The police stopped Miller from continuing, believing Larry was just mentally unstable. They insisted he had nothing to do with the case. They told Miller to return to his jurisdiction instead of making guesses here, but Miller remained suspicious of Larry. So he teamed up with his colleague Laura and brought in Beaumont, an expert in such cases, to interrogate Larry with the FBI. Larry complained that he constantly had nightmares. Other men had women in their lives, but he was always alone. That loneliness made him feel deeply depressed. The agent reassured him, saying that must be hard. Then he showed the victim's photo and asked if Larry had seen her in his dreams. Larry picked up the photo and gently touched it, smiling as he said he had met her. She was riding a bicycle, and Larry had stopped to talk to her. She looked sad, and by that point she was already in his truck. Then he mentioned the cornfield.
Do you remember where exactly?
Remember that. I might not remember it, but didn't have time to bury her.
Larry went on to say that he usually buried the bodies. The agent pressed him on how many victims there were, but Larry said he couldn't remember. The agent quickly drafted a confession and asked him to sign it. But the next second, Larry denied everything again. Then suddenly, he started laughing, saying no wonder he could never sleep well. Trembling, he signed his name. Miller immediately charged Larry, but the judge ruled that Larry had severe personality issues, was highly suggestible, and could confess to things he didn't do. And with a lack of critical evidence, he could not be convicted. The court even allowed Larry to appeal. If the appeal succeeded, more victims could appear. With no other option, they turned to Jimmy in prison. He had a strong personal charisma and a talent for getting people to reveal their secrets. If he cooperated with the investigation, he could have the remaining 9 years of his sentence reduced. They wanted Jimmy to get close to Larry and find out where the other victims were buried. The man in front of him looks harmless, but he has murdered 14 young girls. He confessed to everything, yet the judge couldn't convict him. Because he suffers from a severe personality disorder, none of his confessions can be used to convict him. The police place their hopes on Jimmy. If he can get close to Larry and find out where the bodies are buried, then Larry can finally be convicted, and Jimmy's remaining sentence will be completely reduced. After thinking it over, Jimmy agrees to the deal. But before that, Laura needs to test him to make sure he has what it takes. Fortunately, Jimmy passes the test and secures the opportunity. Jimmy changes into regular clothes. He will enter the prison under a new charge. An agent tells him to drop his usual calm demeanor. Everyone in that prison is unstable. Being calm doesn't fit in there. Then Laura reminds Jimmy not to approach Larry too early so he doesn't raise suspicion, and not to do anything that could extend his sentence. Once his sentence is extended, their deal is off immediately, and Jimmy will spend the rest of his life in that prison. If anything goes wrong,
what if I have to defend myself?
Don't maim anyone, and don't get caught.
he should ask the warden for help. Finally, she tells Jimmy she will pose as his girlfriend and be the only one who visits him. Jimmy can also act a little intimate to make their relationship look real.
Should we practice now?
Hey, cool guy. Keep ticking around here.
But when the car reaches the gate, Jimmy suddenly hesitates. He's afraid he's being set up again and will end up as the fall guy. After all, he was tricked by a prosecutor before and got sentenced to 10 years. The escorting agent suddenly loses his temper. He cannot let Larry walk free. Jimmy is their only hope. Then the agent calms down and thanks Jimmy for what he's doing. Jimmy stays silent for a moment.
Fuck it, let's do it.
Then comes a series of routine checks, and Jimmy's undercover life officially begins. Everyone locked up here has something unsettling about them. Jimmy carefully observes them, but Larry is nowhere to be seen. At this moment, Larry is fixing machinery inside the prison. With his knowledge of mechanical parts, he easily got the job. He still looks like a harmless man. That night, Jimmy sits restlessly in his cell. He wants to see what his opponent looks like. Not until late at night, Larry finishes his work and returns to his cell, and the moment Jimmy hears movement, he stands up. The man agreed to go undercover in one of the most dangerous prisons in exchange for a reduced sentence. As long as he could get a serial killer to reveal where the bodies were buried, he would receive a full sentence reduction. The prison psychologist was the only one who knew his true identity. She arranged for him to be placed in the cell directly across from the target and warned him about the dangers ahead. Every prison has its own rules, but this one had only one rule. There were no rules. Everyone locked up here was unstable. Anyone could attack at any time, for any reason. To avoid blowing his cover, Jimmy had to act like the other inmates and line up for medication on schedule. As the psychologist prepared to leave, Jimmy asked how to contact her if he was in danger. She gave him a number, and he forced himself to memorize it. After that, Jimmy started trying to approach Larry, but Larry ignored him. The man looked harmless, but he was extremely guarded. The next day, Jimmy was told he had a visitor. To his shock, it was his father. His father, a cop, had pulled some strings to get in, but this terrified Jimmy. His undercover identity did not include a father. This exposed that he was the son of a police officer. His father kept blaming himself for ruining everything. Sure enough, a prison guard figured out Jimmy's background. Luckily, the guard was also a cop and agreed to keep it quiet. Then the guard told Jimmy someone in the yard had taken an interest in him. An old inmate who ran things there could become Jimmy's best protection. Using his charm, Jimmy successfully joined the old man's group. The guard watched him from a distance. To get closer to Larry, Jimmy followed him to the TV room. A man came in, changed the channel, and spat on the floor. Larry nervously glanced at him, but didn't dare say a word. Jimmy came up with a plan. He switched the channel back, then punched the guy and beat him down. That made him look unstable, and also earned Larry's approval. After Jimmy got out of solitary, Larry finally spoke to him first. He asked why Jimmy stood up for him. Jimmy just smiled and said he did it for himself. Then he reached out his hand, but Larry shyly hesitated. Later, Jimmy steered the conversation toward cars, something Larry liked. They started chatting comfortably. Then the same guard walked over. He congratulated Jimmy on finding protection, but warned him if the old man ever found out he was a cop's son, he'd be dead. The guard smirked and walked away.
It's not good confusing me with someone you can disrespect.
He had already looked into Jimmy's background and knew he used to have money. Then he threatened him for $10,000 or he would expose him. Jimmy had no choice but to agree and ask his father to bring the money. But his father brought bad news. All his savings were gone, and the stash he had hidden had been stolen by his crew. Jimmy was speechless. Fortunately, before getting arrested, he had hidden one last kilo inside a speaker. He told his father to bring it, and he would find a way to turn it into cash. The guard warned him, if anything went wrong again, there would be consequences. Jimmy needed to finish the job quickly and get out of this place. He went to Larry's cell. The walls were covered in photos. Larry was obsessed with historical battles and often took part in reenactments. He pointed to a man in one of the photos and said it was his twin brother, but his brother looked much stronger. Larry explained that when they were still in the womb, his brother absorbed most of the nutrients, which left him mentally impaired. As time passed, the two grew closer, and Jimmy earned Larry's trust. Larry even told the psychologist that talking to Jimmy made him feel comfortable. Then he took Jimmy to the place where he worked. During their conversation, Jimmy realized that although Larry seemed slow, he was highly skilled in areas he cared about. Larry talked about his job as a cleaner, often dealing with animal blood. While others struggled, he could clean it perfectly. Jimmy guided the conversation toward women. Larry admitted that when he hurt women, he never cared how they felt. Jimmy wanted to ask more, but a guard interrupted them. His father was waiting outside again. This time, he brought even worse news. The last stash had also been stolen. Jimmy let out a bitter laugh. His final hope was gone. Holding back his anger, he told his father not to visit him again. The visit ended, but things were about to get worse. After telling Laura everything, she revealed something shocking. Their operation was never officially approved. There was no way to reimburse him the money. Meanwhile, they had been reinvestigating Larry's case. Larry had confessed multiple times and led police to supposed burial sites, but every search turned up nothing. They now suspected that Larry never killed anyone and had only taken the blame to get attention. Jimmy was stunned. He asked Laura what he was supposed to do now. She told him to request protective custody and she would try to get him transferred out. Jimmy then asked about Larry. Laura said Larry planned to appeal, and if he won, he would be released immediately. Jimmy remembered the terrifying look in Larry's eyes when he talked about women.
I can't protect you, and
I know.
so go into PC until we can transfer you.
Can't.
The man wipes blood off the floor, while the killer beside him has a strange look in his eyes. Jimmy, hoping to reduce his sentence, goes undercover in a prison full of mentally unstable inmates. But not long after, his visiting father accidentally exposes his identity and he is threatened by a prison guard. The female investigator who placed him there tells him they may have suspected the wrong person. She asks him to transfer back to his original prison, but Jimmy refuses. While getting close to Larry, he discovers that this seemingly honest man becomes extremely disturbing whenever the topic of women comes up. Wanting to continue the investigation, he sneaks into Larry's room. Inside the magazines are many drawings, all of them filled with bloody violence. The women in the drawings are also depicted in a terrifying way. Jimmy's suspicion is correct. People have only seen Larry's harmless side. After putting everything back, Jimmy returns to his room. The guard is already waiting, but Jimmy hasn't gotten the cash he wanted. He admits he has done his best and can only accept whatever happens next. The guard doesn't get angry, just pats Jimmy on the shoulder and leaves. At that moment, Larry's voice is heard, and it seems he understands everything. He then asks Jimmy if he saw anyone enter his room. Jimmy nervously says no, but the look in Larry's eyes makes him feel completely exposed. He can only cover his guilt with anger and turns to leave. But the atmosphere in the yard becomes even more unsettling. The usually chaotic inmates are now eerily silent. Then Larry appears behind him.
Do you think you could be in danger? You are in danger.
That night, a riot breaks out in the prison, and the inmates begin attacking those around them. Of course, the guards are their main target. The prison alarm is triggered, and the facility is locked down. Jimmy takes Larry back to their cells. The responding guards seem used to this. Jimmy spends the night in fear, knowing he could be killed at any moment. Suddenly, he hears Larry calling him and asks what he wants. Larry sounds unusually shy, worried that Jimmy is still mad at him. He asks to make peace with Jimmy, and Jimmy, already thinking about how to get closer to him, gives a positive response. Hearing this, Larry laughs and lies back down. They are assigned to clean up the scene, and since Larry used to be a janitor, he becomes the one in charge. He is no longer acting foolish and organizes everyone's tasks in an orderly way. Then he starts chatting with Jimmy. He tells Jimmy about his hometown and his unhappy parents. Jimmy unknowingly gets drawn into the conversation. His own childhood wasn't good either. Then Larry asks Jimmy how good he was at football. Jimmy excitedly says he was the best player at his high school, but Larry thinks he's lying, saying he sounds like his arrogant brother. Hearing this, Jimmy seems to realize something. He admits he was lying and that he was just a bench player. Laura once said Larry confessed to those crimes to make his flawed self seem stronger, and that he might not be the real killer. Jimmy tries to find clues in Larry's expression, but Larry shows a strange look. He changes the subject, asking if Jimmy would eat his pets. In his eyes, all pets are just meat, and humans are no exception. He then tells Jimmy he eventually ate all the pets he raised. Jimmy is shocked by his thinking. It's clear Larry lacks humanity. Larry continues, saying his father never allowed him to have pets, claiming it would distract him from real work. That real work was digging up graves. He grew up in a cemetery. His father's job was digging holes. One night, his father suddenly woke him up and took him to the graveyard. He told him to dig up a freshly buried grave, and young Larry dug while crying in fear. His father rested nearby until Larry lifted the coffin lid.
Get to it, then.
Larry immediately understood what his father meant and removed all the jewelry from the body. One ring was stuck and wouldn't come off, so his father tossed him a pair of pliers. Larry went straight to work. After getting the ring and finishing everything, Larry felt no fear at all. He even treated the severed finger as his trophy. Hearing this, Jimmy feels terrified, but Larry believes those jewels are useless to the dead. It's better to take them and give them value. When he looks at the faces of the dead, it fills him with hope, making him believe the next world is beautiful. At lunchtime, Larry asks about Jimmy's parents again. Jimmy lies and says his father is a firefighter, and his mother runs a bar. But Larry tells him to tell the truth, and Jimmy becomes nervous.
I'm telling you the truth all day.
Have you?
Facing Larry's strange gaze, he has no choice but to continue. His parents separated when he was young, and his stepfather often abused his mother. Every time he tried to stand up for her, he would be beaten by his stepfather. But that his mother loved the stepfather more than she loved Jimmy. Jimmy becomes very upset and starts to choke up. Larry keeps pressing, asking if Jimmy ever wanted his mother to disappear. He says he would soak a towel in starter fluid, then seal it, and press it over the girls' faces. Jimmy panics and asks which girls, and Larry smiles, saying the ones he met. Within seconds, they would collapse. Then his expression turns cold again, saying that way they wouldn't hurt him anymore. At that moment, the bell rings. Still in shock, Jimmy ends the conversation. The next day, Larry's brother comes to visit. Larry asks his brother if he remembers a girl's name, the one they picked up in California. It turns out when he met those girls, his brother was in the car with him. Clearly, his brother doesn't want to talk about it, but Larry keeps reminiscing on his own. Then his brother tells him the police came to their house a few days ago.
They're gonna be all over me when I get out. I mean, that's...
That means I think you're gonna get out.
The man walked out of his cell with a heavy expression, and every inmate looked at him with hostility. He became extremely nervous, thinking his undercover identity had been exposed. Then everything suddenly shifted, and everyone was just chatting like normal. It had all been a hallucination caused by Jimmy's anxiety. He was taken to the psychologist's office, but it wasn't the same doctor as before. The one who knew his true identity had gone on leave. Jimmy felt uneasy because a prison guard had already discovered who he was. The guard had been blackmailing him for cash, but Jimmy failed to deliver the money. At any moment, the guard could expose him to the other inmates. He could be killed in this prison at any time. He had hoped to ask the psychologist for help, but that hope was gone. Now Jimmy was overwhelmed with fear, and every question from the doctor felt like a test of his identity. He forced himself to stay calm, carefully answering her questions. But suddenly she dropped her smile.
I'm asking you for compassion when you deal with some of the men in here.
Then she directly asked him whether he posed a threat to another inmate's mental health. Jimmy was caught off guard, but immediately thought of Larry. He didn't know what Larry had told the doctor, or whether Larry had already figured him out. The next morning, Larry sat nearby watching Jimmy, as if he had been waiting for him. Jimmy pretended to stay calm and sat across from him, and Larry didn't seem to suspect anything. Larry Judong mentioned that his brother had come to visit him, and Jimmy played along with the conversation. Larry went from talking about his sister-in-law to his grandmother, saying his great-grandmother had given birth at 14. He believed getting married that young wasn't a big deal. Jimmy seized the moment and asked what was the youngest girl Larry had been with, but Larry's expression instantly changed.
You first.
My ass first.
You first.
To avoid suspicion, Jimmy made up stories to answer Larry's rapid questions. Just then a guard showed up. There was a leak in the pipes, and Larry was called away to fix it. Jimmy realized every time he tried to guide Larry into revealing the truth, Larry would turn it around and make him the one answering questions. Jimmy then approached the top dog in the yard, keeping him company by playing some boring game. He did it on purpose, hoping to gain protection. But the boss suddenly turned on him, asking if he planned to smuggle goods inside to make money. Jimmy quickly denied it, saying he didn't bring anything in. The boss warned him not to try it again. Then he nodded to the guard. Clearly, this was part of the guard's punishment. The guard had intentionally told the boss just to intimidate Jimmy. Jimmy knew he had to get out of there fast, so he tried to contact the female detective, but he found his account had been suspended, and he couldn't even pay for the call. He tried every account he had, but none of them worked. That meant he had completely lost contact with the outside world. With people behind him urging him on, he had no choice but to suppress his anger. He went out into the yard to calm himself down, but then he saw the guard pointing at him, telling other inmates he was a snitch. Seeing the look in the boss's eyes, Jimmy quickly walked away. Meanwhile, the detective Laura was still searching for evidence against Larry. Based on Larry's statements, they went to a gas station. They found the owner and showed him Larry's photo. The man recognized Larry immediately, saying he had bought auto parts there, but they weren't close. Still, Larry's strange behavior left a strong impression on him. After that, Larry would often come back and hang around. He would talk to the young girls there. Before long, they drove him away. Laura asked why they kicked him out. The owner said all the girls disliked him, including his own daughter. Laura then spoke to the daughter, who said Larry would say creepy things. He also gave her used items that belonged to other people. Miller asked if she still had any of those items. She said she had already sold most of them, but there was one thing she kept. She then took them to the storage room and pointed to a bicycle in the corner. Laura and the others were shocked because it was the same bike that belonged to the missing girl found out in the field. The man jolted awake from a nightmare, and the killer who murdered 14 girls was standing eerily beside his bed. The demon before him terrified Jimmy, his dreams filled with scenes of the crimes. He hurriedly asked Larry if he had been talking in his sleep. Larry said no, and casually joked with Jimmy. He said it must have been the story he told yesterday that scared him. Jimmy froze for a moment, because the detailed account Larry gave yesterday was now being called just a story. With a single sentence, he dismissed everything that could have been evidence. But Jimmy didn't dare show anything unusual, so he pretended to respond casually. He said he hadn't taken it seriously either. He added that Larry's story actually had a lot of flaws. Larry pressed him, asking what was wrong. Jimmy said since Larry knew how to dig holes, why didn't he dig one for Jessica? Larry actually started explaining seriously. He said digging requires the right kind of soil, and it's hard to work in the dark, and sometimes people might interrupt. Jimmy cut him off, saying none of that mattered, but Larry suddenly flew into a rage. Then just as suddenly started laughing. He said everything he said was true. Jimmy held back his anger and pointed out he had just said it was made up. Larry smiled and said that was just to trick him. Then he suddenly leaned closer to Jimmy.
I'm not lying, James.
Jimmy acted shocked, asking if he was really the killer. Then he provoked him, saying he had seen the eyes of killers before, and Larry didn't have that look. Larry showed a disdainful expression and asked what kind of look that was. Jimmy taunted him, saying he was just copying others. Larry's face instantly changed. Before leaving, he told Jimmy to meet him in the workshop. He would show Jimmy what his eyes really looked like. After that, Jimmy spent the entire breakfast in fear. He couldn't tell whether Larry was lying or telling the truth. This seemingly slow-witted, overweight man was impossible to read. Ever since the guard exposed his identity, everyone in the prison was watching him. Those stares could kill him at any moment. Back in his cell, Jimmy kept exercising, trying to release his fear and calm himself down. The guard who exposed him came to see him. He looked at Jimmy with a smile. Jimmy knew he had bad intentions, but couldn't figure out what he wanted. The guard asked who Jimmy was working for, whether Larry was his target. Then he said he was on Jimmy's side, and that he would never betray him. Jimmy asked what he wanted. The guard smiled and said nothing at all, just doing it for justice. But soon Jimmy realized his true intention. Before, he only knew Jimmy had a fake identity and was a cop's son. He didn't know his real purpose, but now he seemed to understand. Jimmy was working for higher authorities. He wanted to use this to get himself a better position. Jimmy laughed at his shamelessness. He said if the guard could keep people off him for a week, he would tell him who he worked for. The guard saw the sarcasm and immediately turned hostile. More threats followed. Not long after, the gang leader appeared at the door. He sat there staring at the floor. He told a story about a friend who suddenly died. It was actually a warning to Jimmy that anything could happen. They could take his life at any moment. Then he left. Jimmy's lips trembled in fear. At times like this, he only wanted to find the truth and get out. Then he went to the workshop. Larry stood with his back to him, working on something. His presence startled Larry. The table was covered with carved wooden birds pressing down a map. Jimmy tried hard to memorize the map. Larry proudly showed that both the birds and the map were his work. Jimmy asked why there were 21 birds. Larry didn't answer. He picked up one bird for Jimmy to look at. The map rolled up. Larry then put the map away. He said he would send them to his brother, and that he would paint all the birds black. He said the birds would watch over the dead. Then he brought up what happened that morning. He didn't want Jimmy to think he was lying, because that would make him seem careless. He said he never treated anyone casually. Every encounter had meaning. Jimmy disagreed, and Larry suddenly got angry and told him to shut up. He said he was part of God. When he folded clothes, it was an act of goodness. Jimmy asked whose clothes. Larry's expression changed and he said a name, Tracy, the very victim Jimmy was looking for. Larry said everyone was searching for her and that she was hard to deal with. She was very strong. He didn't want to hurt her, but she kept resisting, so he had to choke her. But then he said he might have blacked out. When he woke up, Tracy wasn't breathing. Then he became excited again. He said he dug a grave for her, the best one he had ever made, and it would never be found. At that moment, the guard told them to leave. Jimmy, trembling, said he could tell the family the location so they could have closure. But Larry said he was naive. If he did that, he would never get out. Jimmy said he could send it anonymously. Larry burst into laughter.
James! James, you're fucking with me. You're always fucking with me. You're just like Gary.
Jimmy couldn't take it anymore and accused him of needing to atone. But Larry said it was impossible. He would win his appeal, leave this place, and continue his life. Jimmy decided to confront him, saying he would never win.
No fucking way.
Jimmy stood up and started exposing his crimes. Larry instantly understood everything. He asked if Jimmy was sent by the prosecutor. Then he flew into a rage and grabbed Jimmy by the throat. Guards rushed in and pulled them apart. Larry lost control and wanted to tear Jimmy apart. That night, they stared at each other through the bars. The next morning, everyone went out for yard time. But Jimmy's door didn't open. Larry mocked him from outside. Hours later, the door opened, and as soon as Jimmy stepped out, he was restrained. He asked to see the psychologist, but no one responded. He was thrown into solitary confinement. After calming down, he recalled the map. 21 birds, 21 red dots. Those had to be the burial sites. He asked for a pencil but was refused. This was his only chance. He had to draw it. So he bit his finger and started drawing on the wall with blood. Meanwhile, Laura found Larry's brother. He wasn't welcoming, since they were the ones who sent Larry to prison, but he didn't believe Larry was a killer. Larry confessed just to get attention. Then he told a story. They once picked up a girl, got her drunk, and assaulted her. The girl hated Larry and kept resisting. Larry attacked her like he lost control, even almost strangling her. He had to stop him, saying he had never seen eyes like that before. But in the end, they didn't kill her. The girl was taken away the next day. After hearing this, they left. A few hours later, Jimmy was woken up. The guard's attitude had softened. The psychologist had returned. He complained no one informed him, but Jimmy only wanted a pencil. He only cared about the map. Laura arrived and handed him a pencil. Jimmy kept drawing, but after finishing, he realized it didn't point to any clear location. He angrily threw the pencil. All that effort was wasted, but he still told Laura the clues. When he mentioned folded clothes, Laura's eyes lit up, because at the crime scene, there were neatly folded clothes, and that detail was never made public. Only the killer would know. Jimmy's effort wasn't wasted. Soon after, he returned to court. The prosecution kept their promise and reduced his sentence. Jimmy gained his freedom. The judge also rejected Larry's appeal. He was sentenced to life in prison. Later, Larry tried to take his own life, but was saved. His family visited him. Larry complained about the unfairness. His family blamed themselves for not raising him properly. Larry began to cry. He said it wasn't their fault. It was the only moment he showed any warmth. This film is based on a true story. Larry once confessed to 15 murders, but later denied them all. To this day, none of the burial sites have been found. He remains in prison.